There's never been a dull moment in Indian telecom, be it the arrival of a new player or two of the three largest operators deciding to join hands. What's constant through all of this is the tariff war, and it's not showing any signs of ebbing. The pace of growth, at least for the three of the top four players, have also started to taper. So how does one assess the value of these companies and the telecom sector as a whole? Let's ask Nitin Soni, director at Fitch Ratings, who tracks this extremely closely. Nitin, thanks very much for taking out the time. So, let's start off with, what is happening within the industry. While we're talking about the pricing powers, we're anticipating that it might actually start to come back in, but at this point, there are no signs of that. You would anticipate the story being more company specific now within the telecom sector?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. So we have been saying that this is a sector which has corrected the industry structure in a long, intensive, competitive battle. We have come a long way. We had 10 to 12 different telcos, and now we are in a position where there are three large telcos which has emerged out of the shakeout in the industry. Jio is rapidly gaining market share. They already have about 280 million subscribers. And I think we do expect that by the mid of 2019 or the third quarter, Jio would have a revenue market share would be very close to Bharti Airtel's of 30 to 30%, while we expect the Vodafone Idea to get a reduced market share of below 30% by that time. And that we, in our opinion, should be the time frame where Jio would start changing its approach and would start monetizing its large investment of over $40 billion. Remember, they have invested and been operating in this industry for almost 7-8 years now, and they haven't made any sufficient return on investment in this sector. So we do expect the tariff to rationalize in 2019, starting in the second, third quarters of this calendar year.
Nitin, till pricing power gets restored now, what exactly is going to remain the focus? Is it going to be a 4G that's going to take center stage? Is it going to be, how companies look at asset monetization? Is it going to be, network capex and spectrum redeployment? What exactly, according to you, is going to take center stage?
I think all the telcos would be pretty much focused on providing a good internet experience to their consumers, because that is going to be really a driving factor for gaining a larger subscriber base and retaining the revenue market share in this industry. So we have rapidly moved to a time where it's a commoditized product, and all telcos are focusing on providing a streamlined internet experience to their users. So they will have to continuously invest on capex. So capex investment will be sizable for the incumbents in Jio as well. They have to penetrate further into the fixed broadband market, where Jio is going to commercially launch its products, and that market is going to become intense in terms of competition going forward. While we do expect, that is a sticky market and underpenetrated with only 2 million customers with Bharti Airtel, and there's a long way to go. But I think as a market, the data consumption has grown from 1 GB to about 7 to 9 GB on each of the telcos. So data growth is really the driving factor for the revenue in 2019. And as the data tariff remains cheap at about 100 to 120, 30 levels, the data growth, we will see a phenomenal data growth in 2019 and 20.
Would you say Bharti Airtel is well positioned to capitalize on this?
So we have a rating of BBB minus with a stable outlook on Bharti Airtel. And Airtel, given its diversified revenue and EBITDA position, has been the only telco which has retained its market share since the onslaught of Jio in the industry. So they have still retained about 30 plus revenue market share. And we do expect them to monetize their assets and to strengthen their balance sheet going forward. Currently, the ratings headroom on Bharti Airtel is low, as their FFO adjusted net leverage is very close to 2.5 times, which we consider as a threshold for negative rating action. And that is the point where we could take a negative rating action if there is an intense competitive pressure and the management fails to monetize their assets. So overall, stable outlook for the industry, and we do expect some rationalization on tariff should come back in 2019.
All right, that's on Airtel. What is it that you're watching out for specific to Vodafone Idea? Now, obviously, the execution and how well the management goes ahead with regards to capital raising plans, that will be a big impact for a Vodafone Idea. But in an environment that is so competitive and where now you've got very set parameters into very set positions, who leads and who comes second, how does Vodafone Idea fit in? And if they at all have to come back into the forefront, what is it that they need to look at?
So for Vodafone and Idea, they are at the last leg of their integration of their massive operations. This is a big bang, massive integration, which they are still in the process of doing. The network optimization and combining different network sites is a huge headache for such big companies. I think what they need to do right now is to raise more funds to strengthen their balance sheet, to put in capex to streamline their network position in comparison to Jio and Bharti Airtel, because once you start losing subscribers, and once you start losing revenue market share because of your poor quality of network, then it becomes very difficult to gain back the subscriber market share. So in our view, for them, I think right now would be to put in more capex to improve the quality of the data network, to remove congestion from the network, to avoid any call drops on the network, and be at par in terms of the network quality and data quality to Jio and Bharti Airtel, and try to retain their subscriber base.
Okay, so with regards to, like you said, they need to address their coverage issues as well as their capacity issues. But, for a stock which probably has not done much from a shareholder point of view as well, what is the key setback or the key drawback that Vodafone Idea faces in comparison to a Bharti Airtel, aside from what you've just mentioned? Anything particularly concerning for you?
So from a credit point of view, they have a significant debt on their balance sheet. And, as a credit analyst, I think the first thing they need to do is to get down their debt to EBITDA numbers to a reasonable level of 3 to 4 times compared to existing number, which is well ahead of 8-9 times, including the spectrum liabilities. And they have been raising debt. They have monetized their tower assets, and they announced the equity injection into the company. Both Vodafone PLC and Birla Group has sufficient funds at their disposal. They would need to continuously raise funds and put in equity into the company to invest more on the ground, whether it's in the 4G area or the upcoming 5 in the next 2-3 years, or on the fiber broadband network. Remember, in India, we have a very low amount of fiber network infrastructure available. And fiber network is really critical for the 5G technology going forward. So if they are late in terms of investing on the capex and putting in fiber on the ground, they could also miss the 5G bus in the next 2 to 3 years. So they'll have to continuously invest on capex, and at the same time strengthen their balance sheet to retain their large subscriber base.
All right, that's on Vodafone Idea. Just one last question with regards to Jio now. We are expecting Jio to continue to keep tariff rates in check. But aside from that, when the company has stated that its target is to acquire 50% revenue market share and perhaps a similar amount in the customer market share, what does that do to competitive intensity within the industry, and thereof the the actions taken by the other players within the industry?
So the one scenario which could play out is that if Jio keeps on insisting on getting a 50% revenue market share, that would mean that Vodafone Idea and Bharti Airtel at some point of time would have to lose a larger revenue market share. So that could be a very negative scenario for the entire industry, and the tariff would remain under pressure for a very long time. But that's not our base case. Our base case is that once Jio achieves its 30 to 35% of revenue market share, it would have a limited incentive to remain aggressive in the market and to remain in the subscriber acquisition mode. Given the fact that the current tariff structure is unsustainable, it's very low at a $2 ARPU market, which gives the revenue for the wireless industry in the vicinity of $20 billion plus, which is only 1% of the India's GDP, and which is a very unsustainable structure in the industry. So that scenario could be very negative. I think what we are expecting is our base case is that there would be some rationalization on the tariff structure in towards the mid 2019 or the third quarter, and we do expect Jio to, rather than raising the headline prices, but stop providing any discounts and promotions, so that effective tariff realization would increase by 5 to 10% in 2019, which would be positive for incumbents because they would be happy to follow suit.